Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. With me today is Abram and yours truly, Ivan. Abram, how you doing?
I'm doing well. No drinks today. I didn't have time to set up any drinks. We had some technical issues which took up my time, but I'm still here and I'm ready to talk Quakes. It was a fun game.
Yeah. For me, the fun was definitely more concentrated in the first half. I'm sure most Quakes fans would agree, but I'm glad you could see the bigger picture and enjoy it for what it was. And the most important thing is we got a point out of it, so we end the three-game losing streak. The winless streak may continue, but it's okay. We'll take the point.
Right. No, I mean uh, I guess it's just the novelty of I haven't been able to be in the press box for a while, and so going back to that atmosphere, and it was a different, atmosphere, and it was a really fun game. I really enjoyed seeing Bo LaRue ball out like that. He got the goal, but the goal was not even the most impressive thing he did. Really, it was just like, and also Reed Roberts got his first game, so that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of positives to take from this, and I thought that Bruce Arena in the press conference after the match, he was very honest and was very down to earth about how the match went. He pretty much called it how it was, and yeah, I really like how he is and not trying to stay fake positive. He's like, no, we do good first half, bad second half, and the way he does.
Well, there you go. Thanks to Bruce Arena. That concludes our podcast. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Right, he would be really good as a host. I think he could take my job, no problem.
Bruce Arena, for his advanced age, uh, I think that he would be perfect for the world of YouTube Shorts and TikTok videos with that kind of quick assessment.
No, I mean it's like I said. I really like the way he chooses to be honest. Like he doesn't have anyone to please. People are trying to please him. It's the other way around. So he's really brutally honest about like this is what happened. And that's very refreshing because we had two coaches um, with Luchi Gonzalez. I really liked the guy, but he tended to be pretty you know, I guess cagey with how he wanted to respond to criticism, or he wouldn't. You tell us the whole story. He was just like, yeah, we're trying our best every day. We're just you're doing our best or whatever. And then Ian Russell couldn't really do much more than that. That's he just had to carry on the torch until the end of the season. Bruce Arena is very much like, yeah, and it's a little bit frustrating. It is frustrating a little bit when you're trying to get stuff out of him, trying to get like headlines or whatever. It's like trying to make him say something. He's just like, nope, that's just soccer, you know. But it's fun all the same.
Yeah, I believe that's how we should approach it. It should be fun. This is a little bit more fun this week, certainly more than last week. That last against Charlotte was very disappointing. So much so that the powers that be intervened that we couldn't get an episode last week, but now we're back, and hopefully that means that if we get our momentum going again, the Quakes will too.
I freaking hope so. And I mean, the momentum may not be swinging, but it definitely going in the right direction, which is something else that Bruce did say. Like, we lost two games in a row, so to break that streak is always a good thing. We would have liked the win because at one point in the game we did have the lead, but we're going in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, and my Bruce Arena esque short assessment of the game, it would be a beautiful, ugly goal and target practice. But of course, there's a few more things to talk about beyond that.
For sure, yeah, definitely.
So we'll start with the lineup. Return to a 3-5-2, but judging by Arango's positioning and strengths, it felt kind of like a 3-4-1-2 with Arango kind of like as a 10, or do you feel like he was more of a solid midfielder sandwiched in between LaRue and Harks?
Well, I would say that he's definitely more of a 10. That's the idea, anyways. In reality, Arango he tends to do what he wants to do, and so there will be times where he'll pick up the ball below Harks and LaRue, which I don't know what instructions Bruce is giving him, but that's definitely not the orthodox approach to that position, where you kind of want a 10. Like you want a trick artista. If you play Football Manager, you understand what that means. You want it to be 3 quarters of the field to make plays from that position. Um, and there's good parts to that of having him drop deep and having someone orchestrate from that position. But to be honest, you kind of want to leave that role up to maybe Bolaru, who seems to be the more creative of the two center mids that we have, and you want Chicho Arango to be closer to the box, where you know he's a great creator by all means, but his most valuable asset is his goal scoring. And that's why he's such a revered figure in this league. It's not because of what he does, to bring other players into it. It's because of his own personal ability to finish. He has an amazing shot on him, and that's where we want him to be in or around the box. And it kind of diminishes when he's out of that position. But so it's hard to answer your question, Ivan, because it's in flux. You know what I mean? He's going up and down a lot. But I think the what Bruce Arena wanted was for him to be more of a 10, and that was the idea. But obviously, he's going to do what he wants.
Yeah, a lot of times where I saw Arango get into the action, he was going down the wings. He was trying his best to get into his usual goal scoring positions. So far, he's averaging a goal every other game in this season, which is fine. But the more he plays more midfield esque roles, the more likely that goal every other game is going to shrink in terms of the percentages. And just looking at how we started all three of Arango, Judd, and Buddha, you look at the subs that were used. You had Joseph Martinez coming in the 73rd minute. I just came back from Venezuela duty, so it's not the end of the world that he's coming off the bench. And then you had some unused options, namely Pellegrino, of course, Skane. So the only really other X factor is we're trying to figure out when Benji Kikanovic is coming back. It's not looking like it's imminent. That could be another option that Bruce Enrique could turn to when he's healthy, but then you'd still expect a ramp up period. So, yeah, looking at Judd and Buddha starting together, it was an interesting combination, opportunity for both of them to stake their claims to be more involved in the offense and the plans going forward. And admittedly a low bar, but I believe this is Preston Judd's best game so far.
I mean, yeah, I really like what Judd offered. He's a bastard to play against. I would not want to play against Preston Judd as a defender. The goalkeeper could barely get a kick out because Judd was just like hauling ass and getting over there and then blocking the kick, and that didn't result in any significant turnovers to get us like an attack or anything. It ended up, I think, being a throw in, and or the ball was recovered by Seattle. But it's really good to see, and it really puts a dent in the confidence of the keeper. And that's kind of what Judd. That seems to be his most valuable asset because he's not scoring goals right now, where he's just like giving the defense a lot to worry about. And when he's on the ball, he's not just he's not just an off the ball threat. He's also like very positive when he gets the ball and he goes forward, and he's people want to comment on like maybe he's not the fastest. I think he's pretty fast. Like he's not like Benji Kikanovic or Cade Cowell fast, but he can move for 6'3". He's a very big guy, but he has a good pair of legs on him, and he causes a lot of havoc. I think that he eventually could have made a good pairing with Buddha, who likes to be on the ball and likes to bring others into it. Buddha had a few chances, like one or two chances where he turned his defender and got a shot off, but it's not a terrible partnership, Judd and Buddha. I think it's pretty good. And I also wanted to say before I give the mic back over to you, this is something I saw at the stadium before the match as I was heading over to to the stadium, I saw on the training pitch, Verhoeven and Benji Kikanovic were having a little bit of kickabout.
Oh,
Yeah, on the training pitch. So Verhoeven is someone that we're not worried about his injury status right now. But Benji Kikanovic is someone who we don't know where he is in the stage of his recovery, but he's at least able to stand and at least able to kick a football. So, take that for what that means to you. But Benji could be back sometime this season. That's my tectonic take. Benji might play
there we
this
go.
season.
I'll give you a tectonic take of my own. So regarding Bo LaRue, I feel like he's been the story of this season. His integral nature of how he's been dynamic in midfield, contributing offensively, getting a goal in this game, providing an assist in the home opener, season opener. When you look at the other star players of this team, I'm not saying LaRue is necessarily a star player, but he's a rising star. Espinoza, Arango, Martinez, those three in particular, we feel like we are seeing them at their peak of their power. With Hernan Lopez, we're probably not going to see him at the peak of his powers for a long time because of his injury, but given his age at 24, he can still improve. But with LaRue, it's very exciting to see him, 21 years old, skipping levels in terms of his development. It feels like the day after he gets signed to a first team contract, he's already starting, he's already playing at a high level. I think that he's going to be someone that, like Nico Shakiris when he's back healthy again, and like Kate Cal before him, we're going to be looking to see what he does next.
Sorry, I almost pressed the wrong button there. To unmute myself. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Bolaru is someone who I was able to watch very closely last season when he was playing with the town. He's like I said with a tweet when he first got signed. I was very happy for him because he's a very well-rounded player. He is very calm on the ball, and those attributes, in my opinion, have really scaled with the caliber of opponent that he's now facing. It did take a minute. I'm not going to say that he was, incredible right out the box. And we want to say that because he got an assist in his first game, but he was very shy in that first game. In terms of his general play, I felt like he was a little bit like just trying to play the safe ball, which is natural. I'm not taking anything away from him, but that assist that he got was just kind of a glimpse of the kind of competitor that he is, and he is someone who is very smart, and we see him getting an insane amount of interceptions because he is just able to read the game very, very well. And once he gets the ball, he does have the quality to do something with it. Um, we saw him score, but that was obviously a lucky goal. Like, we're not gonna say like, oh, he meant to hit it off the defender, right? But it's not his first time. He's done that many, many times for the town where he had two or three goals where he picks up the ball and then unleashes the shot from around the D area in zone 14, and the keeper can barely ever do anything about it. So, once he gets an opportunity to get a shot off, a clean one, I'm sure we'll get more goals. To be happy about. But he's a very promising player. He's obviously only 21, and that's not like incredibly young. He's not like 16 years old coming through, but he is still very young. There's still a lot of time left in his career at this level in MLS. So definitely one to be excited about, and I'm really happy to see the fact that he's been able to step up his game while he's gone to MLS, because that's not easy to do. We hardly ever see that at that at that rate. He just like was straight into starting 11, and that's not easy for everyone to do.
It is absolutely not easy, and that's why it's also important that we give flowers to another 21-year-old in the starting lineup, Reed Roberts, a player that I didn't know as much about as probably you did before this game. What did you make of his performance as well as his journey getting here?
Yeah, I mean, when we drafted Reed Roberts at the start of the season, he was a top fullback, center back prospect. He was like a hybrid of those two roles. In preseason, we saw him used a lot as a wide center back on the left because he is left footed. But he seems to have a good amount of pace and ability on the ball to be able to put in a good cross at least. Um, I didn't see anything that was like super exciting on the offensive end, like Ricketts, who's kind of like the inverse type player, where he's more offensive leaning in that position. Ricketts was more flashy and is able to beat his man and has like a blistering pace, and you know he's a very good winger in that aspect. But Reed Roberts is kind of uh, the antithesis of that, where he is able to get in behind and get those balls in. Where I was pretty impressed with the accuracy of the crosses that he was making. You could see what he was going for. It didn't quite end up in the goal, but like I said, it looked dangerous. Um, but on the defensive end is where he's really gonna shine. He made two back-to-back slide tackles in a row in the same play, and was able to stop the attack and get it out for a throw. And that was probably the highlight of his game for me. I think that when you have a player coming up from he hasn't even played that many games for the town, so it's a step up from college to MLS Next Pro to MLS, and that's a big leap, and not everyone's able to make that leap. I think that he is where I would expect a player to be at this stage of their career.
I think you're right about that. And this is how you build depth, particularly in MLS's roster construction rules. You have to draft smartly, you have to develop from MLS Next Pro smartly. And the way that these young players have gotten off to a good start this season collectively, it gives me more faith in our depth. It gives me more faith in the next players up, like Verhoeven and Floriani when it's his time, that they're going to be ready when the moment comes. The moment won't be too big for them.
Ivan, can I add one more thing to give some more
Yeah.
context about Reed Roberts? So we in the Super Draft we signed Max Floriani with the second overall pick because San Diego obviously went before us, but it was a big it's a big deal to use the second round pick on Max Floriani, who's a very highly rated center back prospect. We paid a decent amount of money. I don't remember the exact amount, but I feel like 150,000 in GAM to then get a second first round pick to get our hands on Reed Roberts to fill out the depth at the back, right? Because we needed more center backs to facilitate a three center back system. But to just I just want to put it in perspective that we saw something special in Reed Roberts to pay that kind of money to make sure that we get our hands on him before someone else does, and just the kind of upside that is potentially possible. Somebody like Bruce Arena has been around the block. He sees something special in Reed Roberts, as well as Mac Floriani, who hasn't gotten a game yet because maybe he's not as versatile. Reed Roberts is a left back and center back. I just wanted to put that all into perspective and context for anyone who didn't know. We do rate these guys pretty highly. They are ones to look out for.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited, and that's why it's got me watching the town games. I know that the penalty shootout didn't go our way in the last game, but that's okay. You're either getting minutes, they're getting exposure, and it's becoming a bit of a conversion factory of talent, and can't wait to see it continue.
No, for sure. I mean, I think I was a little bit skeptical of the town, but the way that we had to, do things to get our players on a pitch because we couldn't have them on the PayPal anymore. We couldn't support two professional teams and then another, semi-pro team. It's not feasible for the grass, and so to be able to get these guys in a stadium that is a functional stadium, St. Mary's. And I think that the development that's going on there is very good. We have a lot of homegrown players coming through, but these draft guys are definitely. When you watch the games at the town, you can see why we picked these guys to come through because there's definitely a lot of talent there.
The last lineup note I have for the Quakes is the reintroduction of Rodriguez to the starting lineup alongside the usual Romney and Wilson. So it looked like Romney and Wilson are the preferred when it comes to a back four. You just need two center backs, but Rodriguez made a big difference in the defense as he usually does, and I hope it helps Bruce Arena rethink the pecking order a little bit more. But they're all three exceptional center backs, so it's not going to be easy to sit one of them when you need to go back to a back four. So maybe the solution is be like, okay, we're sticking with the back three a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally I prefer the back three to the back uh, five or three. If you understand how soccer works, it does like that. Because Rodriguez just adds so much more dimension to the pitch, and he's the fastest of the three center backs. I think Romney can eventually get up there. He's a very fast player once he starts running, but it does take him a second to reach his top speed. Rodriguez is very fast, very athletic, and kind of the one that they trust most on the ball. So when they're passing through the defensive line back and forth, Rodriguez is usually the one to break the line and move the ball forward because he's the best at that. So I think that Rodriguez definitely. I'm disappointed at the fact that he's not chosen to be in the two center back system, but it kind of is understandable when he's not like your orthodox center back, but I still think that he provides enough defensively to negate that flaw in my opinion.
And there's certainly still a role for an offensive minded center back, someone who can start the offense, someone who can play at the back in a back four. You look at all the Premier League teams that use a back four, it's almost a requirement for one, if not both, of your center backs to play a little bit like Rodriguez. But yeah, I think that we can see why he struggled to get as much playing time as he's used to, but with all the contributions that he's given to San Jose Earthquakes these past few years, the importance that is signified when you make a loan permanent, which is not easy to do always because it costs a lot of money to do that. I think that Rodriguez is going to have his footprints on what happens this season.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're the reason we spent money to make it loan permanent. Um, Also, just like so much fun to watch. Like we always say, like regardless of everything else, he's just so fun to watch and makes his team worth turning into.
Yeah. With the Sounders lineup, they're kind of doing the two timelines thing. You have Obed Vargas, their youngest starter at 19 years old, the Alaska native that is now representing Mexico internationally. And double his age, you have Stefan Fry. And here's a little bit of Tectonic Takes trivia for you, Abram. Did you know Stefan Fry went to the same high school as Chris Wondolowski?
And yourself as well.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah. One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That is very interesting. And uh, what surprised me about that is that we don't talk about it because we usually love to claim all the players and other teams that are from the area.
Yeah, and there will be a player from DC United that's very local, but we'll get to that in a second. And the reason why the Sounders looked formidable in this game and they will be formidable this season is because even though you have some of their mainstays like Joao Paulo is 34, you still have both Rodon brothers at the peak of their powers, and Rusnak as well, 30 is a good age. He's just Ferreira, a big signing from FC Dallas, but you're getting more and more contributions from some of the lesser known players. I don't think you can qualify Jackson Reagan as a lesser known player anymore, considering people want him to play for the U.S. men's national team. The only reason he might not play in the Gold Cup this summer is that he's committed to playing for the Sounders in the Club World Cup. Now, the reason to not like the Club World Cup expanding, like, it's just unnecessary. But also, I've been very impressed with Paul Rothrock throughout this season. He's been getting involved offensively. He's not a main threat when you consider that. Of course, big absence for the Sounders this game was Jordan Morris and, of course, Paul Ariola as well. The always injured Pedro de la Vega. But you get guys like Rothrock getting involved in the plays not dropping off entirely. You like that. And With Nuhutolo, you take the good with the bad. He was certainly one of the parties to blame for the Quakes goal that we benefited from. But like Joseph Martinez, he was in international duty playing World Cup qualifiers, in this case for Cameroon. And he's still been able to play so many different defensive roles for the Seattle Sounders over the years. So yeah, you just can never write this team off. Like, there's a lot of history with Sounders Earthquakes and DC United, but even though the Sounders they weren't a part of the original class of MLS '96, that once they got on the scene in the late 2000s, that they've been a part of MLS history ever since.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a interesting game when we play the Sounders because as strong as it seems like when they're stronger, we do better against them, and when it's the other way around, we don't quite get the job done. I was telling everyone before the match, they asked me my opinion. I'm like, well, they have like 15 ACL injuries, so to like they're all their best players, like Ariola, Pedro de la Vega, a bunch of players out for them. So I was like, okay, well, we probably have a chance here. But with players like Rothrock, he's a lesser known player, like you said, but he's probably garnering a lot of reputation because when I was in the press box, everyone was like, "Who's number 14?" They didn't really know about him. I remember him last time we faced them, or one of the last times we faced them. I was like, that guy is very annoying to play against, and he does a lot of tricks where he's like standing off the pitch at some point. He likes to stay in an offside position and wait for the defensive line to then overtake him so that he's in a more advanced position and best still onsides. A lot of you know life hacks, I guess you could say. He really difficult to mark, I'm sure. So he was giving us a hard time. But the Ivan, you could probably tell me, but the number 93 on Seattle, uh, very, very, very fast player. And when Nick Lima came on to give us more defensive stability on the right side, he pretty much couldn't do anything against this guy. And I have my opinions on Nick Lima as a player, but I can't even blame him at all for losing those duels against him because he was just outpaced. Like, what do you want him to do? Run faster is not possible. Like that, it was such a mismatch on that side, and I don't think anyone we have could have done a better job. But no, they at the second half was definitely Seattle really picked up and became just a different team.
Yeah, I think the concern with Nick Lima is that it's kind of the opposite of Mark Anthony Kay. Both of them have been coming off the bench, but while Kay comes in and he solidifies the defense, Nick Lima seems to be a bit of a target for opposing attackers. But if the guy that you're referring to, Georgie Minyungu, so that's the number 93 right winger, 22 years old from Cote d'Ivoire. If he's got you locked in his crosshairs, there's not going to be a lot of MLS defenders that can contain him. That's going to be an exciting player. Of course, Danny Musovsky was their other player that came off the bench. It seems like every time he plays against the Quakes, he's wearing a different jersey. But you can see that their substitute options in terms of changing the game were limited because three key players are out due to injuries. So that was a bit of a break for the Quakes. Of course, we want to play these teams as healthy as possible. We're not necessarily we're not happy when players are injured, but when when teams come in and they're not at full health, then we gotta recognize that it's a bit of a break, and that does play a factor in our ability to hold on to get these results. We talked about the Leroux goal. There was another chance shortly after for Leroux to get his brace. I thought that Harks and Espinoza were getting involved too. The first half was pretty solid. Any other thoughts on the first half?
I mean, not too many. I think that we've covered it pretty extensively. I think Larue was, like I said, was incredible. Besides just the goal he scored, I did ask him. I don't know if I mentioned this. If we did, editor, you can cut it out. But I asked him in the press conference because he was selected to take questions. Um, I've seen you score from that position before, like for the town. Would you say that's your spot, so to speak? And he said, yeah, the way I strike the ball, it's a very good spot for me to score goals. And and you didn't even have to say that. We pretty much saw it, but that kind of confirms that he knows that that's a good spot for him, and the way he strikes the ball, uh, a lot of times going to end up in the back of the net. Um, but he had an incredible game. I think even without the goal, it probably would have been man of the match for me. He did get pretty gassed by the end there, and I think that Bruce probably waited too long to bring in Mark Anthony K because Bro just didn't have anything left in the tank because he was working really hard the first half, and maybe that's why we started to suffer so much. Obviously, it's not the only reason. I think that it was tactical changes by Seattle, but something to consider.
Yeah, I think that Seattle were able to draw some fouls, try to generate some chances like that in the first half. Both of our wingbacks, Roberts and Espinoza, conceded free kicks, fouling Rothrock, so that was his impact. And then we had both of our strikers, Preston Judd and Hussein Buddha, getting some opportunities, didn't quite convert into goals, but it was nice to see their confidence levels rising. But collectively, the Quakes' confidence level took a dip at halftime. Looking at the full time stats, Seattle Sounders marked 59% possession over the course of the 90 minutes. I think if we had to put a number on the possession for the second half, 70% would be my low bar. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even be able to tell you any number. In the first half, we had. I remember on the sheet they gave us, it said 0.88 xg, and so you would expect us to come out with a goal. It was a lucky goal, but we had a good chance in the first half. That just dissipated completely in the second half. And I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about what you think led to the Seattle's goal, because I felt like it was pretty shoddy defending, for not just from Morango but also the positioning for the players behind him. They have to kind of see that he's the last man on that side.
Yeah, I think you can attribute it to a lot of things. The fact that they were pinned in their own half, essentially the entire second half, you're bound to make that kind of mistake. And we've seen that time and time again with San Jose Earthquakes is that when you bunker down too much, it's that you just can't have a lot of success playing that way. You need to have some outlet. You need to have some shot opportunity. I don't think the Quakes had a good chance, let alone any chance, until I think it was Espinoza in the 87th minute. That's just far too long to go in a drought in terms of creating and giving your defenders a chance to breathe a little bit. You know, they're still marking high up the pitch, but at least they're not sprinting and they're not like completely on edge. Uh, get it out for like throw-ins or like just corners or goal kicks on the other end. Something like the biggest breaks that they had were the substitutions.
Yeah, no, definitely, and a lot of people were confused about the substitutions, but I don't know. I didn't really have an issue with them other than that they happened a little bit too late. I feel like we had to recognize the fatigue that we had and deal with that a little bit earlier, but I don't know.
Yeah, the first substitution, 66th minute, you had Nuhu hitting some good contact with his foot. He's got a shot on him. I think that the way things were going in that second half, and it was set like 5 minutes into that half, that you needed a sub 60th minute at the latest.
Yeah, I mean, even when I'm playing like FIFA or something, right? A 60th is like around there, like 55 minutes in, you want to be thinking about who you're going to bring on for the 60th minute. And that's FIFA, where you could, run a guy into the ground, he won't complain. It is in real life, you have to, be more on top of it. And I'm sure Bruce knew that. I don't know what happened. I wasn't down on the touchline. Um, and it was kind of fatigue, in a way that led to that goal where Arango kind of lashed out and just swung at Rusnak, and then Rusnak just skipped by him, right? And then nobody came over like across. This is where, coincidentally, someone like Beeson would be nice because he was going to use the last, you know, molecule of gas in his tank to run over and get a block in. Not saying that I think Beeson should have played in this match, but nobody seemed to take that initiative. Nobody seemed to have that sense of urgency that Rusnak is approaching our goal and there's no one in his way right now. And it was definitely a missed misstep by Arango to go in really recklessly to try and win that ball with no one behind him. He was the last man on that side. You kind of want to contain your man at that point, whether you get the ball or not. You just want to slow him down. But he kind of made the angle for him possible by just like swinging for the ball and missing completely.
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme, like some of those retaliation fouls or reactions. You get your revenge by playing harder in the next play. Don't try to make a bad situation even worse. In that battle between former RSL players and Rusnak, of course, he was able to get that decisive goal to give Sounders a point that we can't argue was deserved. They definitely earned at least a point in this one. Quakes in many ways were fortunate to get a point in this game, but I think that the ability to hold firm, and that's been the theme of a lot of our Sounders games. The games that we've won, they've been pretty similar to this, where we've had to endure a lot of pressure, and eventually it's going to catch up on you. Sounders are just too good to constantly lose in that fashion, and while we continue to have a good record against them, not losing in a long time against Seattle, Heritage Cup still up for grabs in the return leg at Lumen Field. But I think that karma kind of bit us there. But thankfully, we had a savior in goal. It was essentially target practice throughout that second half. Not every shot was destined to be a goal had it not been for Daniel, but he made some pretty important saves.
Yeah, I mean it's a luxury of having a well when we had a really good scouting facilities. I think that it Daniel's a very good pickup. He's very calm when facing shots like that. Uh, you know, we sh- it's hard to say we should have lost that game, but if we had a keeper with less ability, I should say, then we very well could have. Some of the saves he made were very good. I think that one where I don't remember who it was, but it was a 1v1 and he managed to, stop it. That was a very impressive save. And then you just need somebody consistent enough to stop those shots where Nuhu was just back to back, just volleying it towards you. You have to be on top of your game to be able to see those all the way, read them, and then smother them. So, uh, if nothing else, we have a very strong keeper. He did go down a little bit with an injury. I don't know how serious that was. We didn't ask, um, but I hope it's nothing. I don't think that he was faking it, but I hope that is something where you kind of recover the day of. You're just a little bit sore, and then you could play the next match.
Yeah, it's hard to judge goalkeeper injuries when they're able to keep going because that's the last thing a coach wants to do is sub in a goalkeeper because it just limits your options for the outfield tactical changes you can make through substitutions. And Daniel's missed plenty of time due to injury, so anytime that he gets hurt, gets banged up, you hold your breath, you cross your fingers, and you just hope for the best. And thankfully, we haven't heard anything yet about any injury update, but it would not be out of the realm of possibility to hear maybe late into the week that hey, Daniel's not going to be able to play in this one, but I'm optimistic that he'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, he was able to play the rest of the match at the very least and do a very good job. He was able to play at a high level, so that let that be a good sign. But don't take anything we say here as, an official statement.
Yeah, you can argue either Daniel or Bolaru were the players of the match for this game. Of course, the offensive contribution, the goalkeeping contributions. On the Seattle Sounders side, Albert Rusnak was the most dangerous player by far. A bit quieter game, Jesus Ferreira's standards within MLS. Of course, the Pirate of the Caribbean. So unfortunately, this was San Jose, not Saint Martin or something, or Saint Lucia. So but yeah, Roldan brothers were all right. Obed Vargas had a good game in midfield. Pretty solid across the board. I feel like this is a game where we saw more good than bad than a lot of the players that are on the pitch. A lot of them cancel each other out because there's a game a few opportunities in the first half. And then the second half, it was one-way traffic. So he had the defensive players holding on for dear life and able to clear a lot of the danger. And had the offensive players who had a lot of opportunities to show their skills in Seattle's case. So I'm happy with the 1-1 draw in terms of we got a little bit lucky. We did well in the first half, but it was just asking for trouble in the second half. But that's the most important thing. We got a point. We're currently 10th in the West, so we're teetering in that range. Doesn't really matter right now because there's still a lot of game left. But based on the way that the Quakes have played in the first six games, being in 10th place is a fair reflection of where this team is at right now. It's a team that you need a lot of things to go your way to get to the playoffs. And right now, the San Jose Earthquakes, they had things go their way in this last game just to get a point.
Yeah, I mean, it is a frustrating result in terms of like what we're expecting from this match. But when you watch the match and then take it as what it was and how the play actually panned out, then we did deserve a point and no more than that. So with that in mind, it's not a bad result, and it is technically a trend in the right direction where we want to start getting 3 points instead of one.
It's improvement.
It's better than no points. That's what we had before, and now is 1 point, maybe 3 points the next match. DC United is an organization that I I don't always have the most confidence in. I don't know how they're doing this season, but I used to write for them back in the day, and it was really tough to make anything because they were just losing 5-0, 6-0, game after game. So maybe we can get a 5-0, 6-0 result on them on Sunday. I know that this 30th anniversary of a match that ended 1-0, and it was a very boring match throughout, according to Bruce Arena himself, who was there that day. Yeah, Ivan, you probably have more to say on that.
Yeah, I think that because of how MLS is structured now, there's so many Eastern Conference teams that we're just not going to play each season. So you have an opportunity to relive history, the first ever Major League Soccer game between San Jose Earthquakes and DC United. I feel like it's a great game to go to for that reason alone. If you're a fan of Major League Soccer, you're a fan of U.S. soccer, there's that significance already. It's also the reminder of just how chaotic the last time these two teams faced off were. I remember watching that game at our friend Dan Burkhead's bar. Unfortunately, it's no longer open, but it was a great opportunity to support his dream at the time. And I just remember how tough it was just to escape with the point, especially after we had a player sent off. Even though that it was judged to be the last defender before the goal, there was still another defender, I believe, that could have made a recovery run. So I wasn't a fan of that decision. And look at the difference a point make right now. With San Jose Earthquakes on 7 points, you're very close to the playoff race, but DC United, they're at 6 points, and the teams ahead of them to make that leap into the playoff zone, you're looking at New York Red Bulls, New York City FC, and Atlanta United all on 8 points. So it's just really tough. Like, there's not a lot of bad teams in Major League Soccer right now. Of course, the teams below DC United are buddies, New England Revolution, and then less surprisingly, Toronto and Montreal. So maybe those are the bad teams in the East. And DC United coming off a 2-1 loss to Columbus Crew. They got their goal from. Want to take a guess, Abram?
Columbus Crew call from
DC United.
DC United, Benteke.
Yes, exactly. Usually it's Christian Benteke doing all the goal scoring for DC United, and that's been the biggest concern for DC fans. It's like, get this guy some help.
Yeah.
And then the assist provider was Peglo. So Brazilian names get more and more creative as the years go by. So Peglow. A pirate name is their 23-year-old Brazilian left winger.
My girlfriend, she has an issue with Brazilian names because she learned that I was teaching her the players like Tommy Thompson, Kate Cowell, and she's like, "Who's that guy?" I'm like, "That's Nathan." And she's like, "Nathan who?" Nathan. She's like, "What? He can't only have one name." And I'm like, "You're gonna freak out when you learn about Fred." just straight Fred. And she also doesn't understand why they put Eno at the end of their names. It's a work in progress. We're working on it. I'm definitely explaining all that all the nuances to her.
An advanced class would be Yago Pikachu.
Is that another name?
That's a
Oh my god.
legitimately Brazilian
She's gonna
player.
freak out.
Yeah.
She is not gonna.
Oh my
She's gonna.
gosh. I'm so glad you're learning about this. This podcast is very
It
educational.
it is, yes.
So, looking at DC United's lineup, their starting goalkeeper is 21-year-old Jun Hong Kim from South Korea. They've got a few internationals in their defensive setup. Center back Kai Rowles from Australia, right back Aaron Herrera representing Guatemala, and then the defensive midfielder Matti Peltola from Finland. So, there's some quality players there. I'm very intrigued to see how Jose Kojima does. He was a player that a lot was expected from him at a young age when he was coming through St. Louis. Hopefully, the change of scenery after this game will help him take that next step in his career. But similar to the Seattle Sounders, that a few injuries to their players have diminished their options. They don't really have a lot of depth, it looks like, in terms of attacking threats to begin with. They were bringing on Jacob Merle, who's a 21-year-old striker, and Dominic Badji, who is a MLS veteran, off the bench. But their other options that are injured are another veteran in Randall Leal, and then Jackson Hopkins, who's 20 years old. He's more of a midfielder. So I think that right now the San Jose Quakes are not in position to underestimate anyone. Like we saw with Colorado Rapids, that uh, despite them not having too many obvious goal scoring threats, they were able to do enough to get the win against us at home. So we gotta be careful. We gotta be particularly careful with Christian Benteke. Everyone knows what kind of challenge he brings, even at 34 years old. One thing that doesn't really dissipate when you get older, if you still pump that iron, is just being strong and being aggressive and being a nightmare for defenders to deal with in set piece situations. But he's very technical as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that we are facing Benteke, I remembered the monster he is as a goal scorer. I'm hoping, I have my fingers crossed that we go with a three center back system again, just because that's how many center backs it probably will take to beat Benteke in the air. And if that's their only weapon, then that's what we have to focus on. And I would be hesitant to. I guess it's not up to me, but I would be a little bit disappointed and scared to see us lining up with the back four. I don't think that Wilson and Romney aren't great center backs, but Rodriguez is a monster in the air. So I would like to see a formation that lets them all play and hopefully stop Benteke.
Yeah. And then one last player that I want to mention regarding players of note for DC United, 18-year-old Sacramento native Fidel Barajas. By the time this game takes place, it will be the day after his 19th birthday, and I think he'll be the next player that will have a tug of war between USA and Mexico. More recently, he's represented Mexico at the underage youth levels, but he's kind of like similar in the mold of Diego Luna, a very impressive, dynamic winger, and he's got a good finish as well. I hope that he'll get an opportunity to maybe come off the bench, given that he's from Sacramento, so this will be an opportunity. His family will want to see him play. Of course, it's professional level, so it doesn't always work out that way, but it'll be a great moment to see him in the stadium.
Yeah, speaking of 19-year-olds, we have one on our bench. We were so excited for Nico, and we were talking about Nico last time we were on this show, and then he wasn't available, and then we're like, oh, we checked everything we said about Nico. Then Nico comes back from international duty. He's back from the war, and he's injured. So still no Nico Chikaris. But before he got injured, before he went off to international duty, he was starting to. It was like a snowball. He was getting more and more minutes as time went on. Um, I don't know when he will be back, but the snowball effect that was happening prior to him leaving, um, hopefully, is a sign that he will at some point get more minutes, because the Arango at the 10 is not the worst, but it's not the best. I would really like to see him play higher up and be receiving the balls closer to the box.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we want to maximize Arango's presence, especially if we're trying to work back in Martinez from very interesting spell Venezuela. He didn't make the roster in the first game, and then he was available for the second game. So we would have liked to see him available for both games, but most importantly, he's healthy. So that's good news for us. And then, yeah, a player like Nico Shakiris can help out Arango. It can help out the entire team as he's done in the past. So, yeah, the injury combination with the international break from a Quakes perspective is definitely tough because it just limits the opportunities to see him play, and he's a very fun player to watch.
He very much is, and that's what I miss the most of seeing Nico do his thing. It's not many can just do that. He's very special.
How important do you think it is for the San Jose Earthquakes to win this game, given that the rest of the month we have LAFC away, San Jose Earthquakes at home against Sporting Kansas City, and then Columbus Crew away?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would put it at a 6, maybe 6.5, because I don't think that it is necessarily reflective of how the season will go. But it is what's important about it is the momentum that we gain and the confidence that it inspires in our players who we know in the past have tended to, after a string of losses, they maybe get their heads down, and in our good friend Saz, in his interviews with some of the players on What's Shaken, they admitted that when they went down, even if they were winning, when they went down a goal, when the other team scored, they were like, "Oh, it's happening again," right? Like they kind of expected to lose in every game, and that's not a very good mindset, right? It's not their fault, obviously, but it's not a great mindset to have. So, in order to avoid that mindset, I think with this team, we want to start getting wins because that kind of, like I said, it builds momentum, it builds confidence, and also points are great to have on the table. So I'm not gonna start saying like I'm super pessimistic on the season, or even I won't say that I'm like crazy positive on the season until we hit 10 games, and that's I think where we can see like okay, that's what we can expect for the rest of the season. That sample size I think is big enough, but I think we need to start getting momentum back, like I said, and this could be a really good time to do that.
I think that the San Jose Earthquakes will prove themselves to be a team that needs to be taken seriously if they can get a minimum of 6 points in the month of April. And the easiest path to do so, beat DC United and beat a now Pierre Vermes-less Sporting Kansas City. So if you get crushed by LAFC and or Columbus Crew, but you beat those other teams that are at your level, then you can hang your hat knowing that okay, we took care of business in those games that we needed to, and then we move on to the next month with the likes of Portland and Colorado, and then with whoever decides to show up from Inter Miami.
Yeah, the game in LA is the day before my 25th birthday, so I will probably be getting ready. I'm thinking about taking a trip out there with some friends if we can get everyone together and celebrating it in LA after the game. But obviously that would be a big undertaking. But that just means that I'll be celebrating whether we win or lose. So that's good.
Will you be at this game, DC
Yeah,
United?
right now the plan is to go. I don't have anything that day, April 6th, I believe. Um,
So that'll be my opportunity to celebrate my birthday with your
oh
birthday with
yeah,
you.
yeah, that'd be great. No, yeah, I'm planning to go, so hopefully I'll see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a big weekend this week. Of course, we want to give a shout out. I know not every Quakes fan loves the Roots, but you have to give credit where it's due. 26,575 people showed up at the Coliseum for the opener. Got to watch a bicycle kick goal. We still lost 2-1, but that's okay. This is going to be a very fun weekend for Bay Area sports. Uh, it would have been even more fun if Bay FC were playing. It looks like they got like a bye week or something. A little bit more time to recover for their loss against Washington Spirit. But both the Roots on Saturday and the Quakes on Sunday, they're playing afternoon games. Roots at 1 p.m. on Saturday and the Quakes at 2 p.m. on Sunday. So if you've struggled to get to Quakes games since the Apple TV deal has forced most of the games to be at 7:30 p.m., and maybe you haven't been able to take your kids to these night games, even though there's still plenty of kids there, I can assure you it's a fun environment. Or you're out in SF or something and you just need a bit more time to get there. This is your opportunity, and if you can go to both games, you can go to both games. I'm looking forward to going to Bart to this Roots game during the day on a weekend and saving myself, the parking fee for the Roots game because, yeah, I'll pay Bart more than I'll pay parking if I can make that trade. But it could be a very fun weekend for sure. Uh, but the most important thing for this podcast is concerned, we want the Quakes to turn the draw from last week into a win this week, and we think we can do it.
No, I think that we definitely have what it takes. I will say, Ivan, about what you were saying. I do understand the frustration with parking, but I've never, I think, heard a Bay Area native say they are looking forward to BART. That the new.
During the day on the weekend, it's a different vibe.
Okay, that makes sense because every time I used to live in San Francisco, and every time I would use BART, I would be accosted by a strange man to tell me strange stories or just scream obscenities in the back of the BART train. It's always a crazy place, definitely an interesting place if you are looking for something fun to do. I guess I don't know.
I take Bart to work twice a day to SF State. I haven't had that experience yet. Knock on wood that that streak continues. But yeah, I understand that for a standard Roots game, the usual kickoff time 7 p.m. Most people would probably feel more comfortable. Use the buddy system if you can, if you're relying on Bart to go to those games. But where can people follow you, Abram?
Yeah, you could follow us on. I said us. Majority just came out there. No, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at L Bambastic L underscore Bambastic on Blue Sky, obviously Blue Sky Social, but on Blue Sky actually it's LEL hyphen Bambastic because they don't allow underscores. I don't know.
Yep, and then you'll find me at Ivan Ornelas 2 at Blue Sky and an X, and I look forward to giving you a match report article on the San Jose Earthquakes. Maybe a combined piece with the Roots. One big weekend. We'll see if I split into two. But either way, I'll post it on both those accounts. I'll share it on the Discord. And hopefully, we'll be celebrating a Quakes win the next time we record. All right. Take care, everyone, and go
Go
Quakes.
Quicks.